It's July 25th, and we're tracking Douglas on this special Saturday edition of This Is Now.
Take this as seriously as possible.
At this hour, the hurricane is slowly weakening, but it's still expected to bring severe weather to the islands.
To not only get it open, but to have it staffed and to have all the services available.
Coming up, a status check on shelter space amid this pandemic.
Probably result in people getting less hours, so it kind of makes a big impact on everybody all around.
An already struggling Waikiki worries what Douglas will bring.
With our 717s, we're moving them to Kona, and with our A321s and A330s, we're moving them to the mainland.
These stories, plus flights are already being canceled as the storm moves in. We got the details coming up on This Is Now. Good afternoon. Thank you for watching this special edition of This Is Now. I'm Jonathan, your director producer, alongside Ashley. The state is reporting 73 new COVID-19 cases. More on that in just a moment, but first our severe weather coverage.
A hurricane warning has been issued for Oahu, and FEMA announced that federal disaster assistance has been made available to the state to assist local recovery efforts in areas affected by Hurricane Douglas. Let's send it over to Guy Hagi for the very latest forecast.
Aloha on this Saturday. I hope everyone is well and staying safe and getting prepared. Here's the latest on Hurricane Douglas. It is a Category 1 storm. It has been downgraded and weakened just ever so slightly. Winds are now at 90 miles an hour, still moving at a good clip at about 18 miles an hour, and the gusts are still running upwards of 115 miles an hour. It's closing in on the state. Right now it's about 300 miles outside of Hilo. It's about 500 miles outside of Oahu. Now the path has been jogged a little bit more to the north, and that puts the Big Island outside of the cone. That doesn't mean they're totally safe. They could still get roughed up with some pretty bad conditions. And as we move along in time, it is expected to maintain hurricane strength, although get slightly weaker as it slowly moves upwards of the state. Now, there's a chance that the hurricane actually makes landfall, and it looks like Oahu and Kauai are the ones at most risk. And that's why there is a hurricane warning. A hurricane warning is now on for Oahu, and that warning means that hurricane conditions are expected for over the next 36 hours. There's a less urgent hurricane watch on, and that means hurricane conditions are possible for Maui County and the Big Island. And as it approaches Kauai, you can expect them to get under those same watches and warnings. For now, there's a tropical storm warning. So what are we expecting? What should you be getting prepared for? Damaging tropical storm force, if not hurricane force winds. And those winds could cause power outages, could down trees, and cause property damage. Also, very big surf coming into east and southeast shores, and these are spots that aren't used to getting those kinds of large waves. So that's why it could cause erosion as well as coastal flooding. So here's a little bit of a timeline. This is the worst case scenario. This is the European model, which has been very aggressive in the storm prognostication. This model keeps it just to the north of the Big Island, but they could still get a lot of rain, 2 to 5 inches, and the winds could be running anywhere from 20 to 30 miles an hour, not to mention that large surf. And then behind that, here's the timeline. By Sunday night, they could still get some lingering thunderstorms. At least that's what this model is expecting. And then early Sunday morning, we're talking 10 o'clock, that storm system, the center of the storm of Douglas, expected to approach Maui County. This is where we're expecting some heavy rain over on the windward side. And notice the wind shift as the storm moves to the west. You're going to see those winds shift from the east to southerly and southwesterly winds. And those winds could be quite strong. They could be running upwards of 50 miles an hour for parts of Maui County. And looks like lingering thunderstorms trailing behind could be coming into Maui County sometime Sunday afternoon into Sunday night. And then slowly by late Sunday night, the storm system should be moving on to Oahu. So for Oahu's timeline, this is Sunday at 5 p.m. This is tomorrow afternoon. The storm is expected to move closer to us than to Maui County or the Big Island, and that's why hurricane warning is posted for Oahu. Again, hurricane conditions are expected over the next 36 hours. So as that storm moves closer, these are the effects that we are expecting for Oahu to hit. We're expecting more rain for Oahu than Maui County and the Big Island. In fact, some spots could get upwards of 15 inches of rain. The winds could be gusting upwards of 50 miles an hour. And again, those east shores likely to get warning level surf. And we are expecting a slow clearing by, say, early Monday morning. So it looks like Sunday night is the time, Sunday afternoon through Sunday night, Oahu is going to see the roughest weather. Now for Kauai, the time frame looks like this. Sunday evening, the storm will be approaching. Still in the, will be moving into the Kauai channel, moving on to Kauai. So Kauai expecting the thing late Sunday night, early Monday morning. The center will be extremely close, and they could get upwards of 18 inches of rain. That's what this model is forecasting. 30 to 60 mile an hour winds, maybe with some stronger gusts, and again, a very, very large surf for east sides. Again, this is the computer model that indicates the worst case scenario, and that's what we should all be planning for, the worst case scenario, because if you are prepared for the worst case scenario, you'll survive if you don't get it and if you get lesser conditions like that. So all in all, there's the latest on Douglas. Get prepared now to keep your family safe. We'll have more on Hawaii News Now on air and online.
We spoke to Honolulu Mayor Kirk Caldwell on the phone just a short time ago about the city's plans for emergency shelters. Here's what he had to say.
So as you know, we're working very hard to pin down shelters, given the fact that it looks like Hurricane Douglas may be a hurricane as it gets close to Oahu. We want people to be safe if they first cannot shelter in place or shelter with friends or family or neighbors. And so we have selected 12 shelters outside of town that we'll be announcing at the governor's press conference at 12:30. And we're working on a potential larger shelter in town at the convention center where we could have up to 1,500 people shelter with physical distancing and face coverings and temperature taking and all of that. If that does not work out, then we have to find more shelters in town, and we do know where those are. We'll be announcing those too. But I'm hoping we can pin down the convention center with the Hawaii Tourism Authority between now and 12:30.
You know, they're calling Douglas a triple threat with rain, wind, and surf. Of those elements, which one scares you the most as mayor?
The one that I'm most concerned about right now is rain. We've seen how damaging rain can be in tropical storm settings, whether it be in East Honolulu 2 years ago or out in Lanai and Molokai. When you have a lot of rain parked over, a storm cell parked over one part of the island can cause massive flooding downstreams. And then because you have a hurricane offshore, the tides are higher, and therefore the water cannot flow as easily into the ocean, backs up and causes a lot of flooding where people live. And that's my biggest concern.
Now, the National Guard is already activated in the state because of COVID-19, but Governor Ige says he's prepared to call in even more guardsmen because of the storm.
I signed a state emergency proclamation pre-landfall so that we would be able to position state resources and personnel to clear streams and prepare to clear road debris and other preparations in anticipation of Hurricane Douglas. I am prepared to activate additional National Guard personnel as necessary to respond to those activities in support of preparations for Hurricane Douglas. And this is in addition to National Guard personnel already activated in response to COVID-19.
Now, because visitor numbers are so low in the state because of the pandemic, Maui Mayor Mike Victorino says he's confident there's enough shelter space on the island for anyone who needs to stay there. That's even with those social distancing guidelines.
So we're opening up as many shelters as possible in the different districts, and we'll be at almost the same number, but with a lot less capacity because of the fact of physical distancing. However, we feel very confident that what we have available and the personnel that we can bring in will be able to handle the numbers here in Maui County, especially since visitor numbers, which is usually the ones that fill up our shelters initially, will be very low. And so we're confident we have enough to take care of the needs of the people of Maui County.
New today, U.S. Navy ships and submarines based at Pearl Harbor not undergoing maintenance have begun plans to head to sea as Hurricane Douglas takes aim at the islands. Those ships will be positioned to help respond after the storm if needed. Hawaii-based Navy aircraft will be secured in hangars or flown to other airfields to avoid the effects of the storm.
Waikiki businesses still suffering from the economic fallout caused by the pandemic are preparing for a potentially destructive ocean. Mark Carpenter takes us to Waikiki.
Earlier this week, waters from an extremely high king tide came up to this walkway and resulted in the removal of the lifeguard tower here at Queens Beach, a microcosm of how this coastline could be impacted by the force of Hurricane Douglas.
Mother Nature sending a powerful message of what she's capable of. But Oahu's team of 260 lifeguards bracing for anything Douglas may bring.
But a hurricane swell is entirely different. It's wildly unpredictable. It could deviate, it could change like Iniki did. While it can also provide amazing surf if the winds are right, it can also cause catastrophic damage.
And to cover the island's coastline, Ocean Safety is prepared to go mobile with these special utility all-terrain vehicles fully equipped for any rescue operation.
What we really want to be able to do is get somewhere really quickly with the UTV because it's got the equipment. And so that's how they come into play. And there are other parts of the island where they're going to be very useful for the same reason.
Meanwhile, Waikiki's business community is bracing for another potential storm after already sustaining financial damage from the coronavirus pandemic.
Now with the warnings of hurricanes, that freaks a lot of people out. So that's going to bring even more down and probably result in people getting less hours. So it kind of makes a big impact on everybody all around.
That old saying of when it rains, it pours. I mean, we were just wanting to just get a little break, and obviously right now it looks great, but things can change really fast for us. It's been pretty challenging right now. We won't really know how it'll affect us till the weekend.
Mark Carpenter, Hawaii News Now.
And on Kauai, which is also in the storm's current path, Mayor Derek Kawakami says residents know from experience that preparation is key to staying safe.
Planning for a hurricane right during a pandemic is going to be slightly different as we need to protect ourselves from two different emergency situations. Everyone should be utilizing this time to prepare your home and property to protecting against heavy rain, flooding, high winds, and storm surge.
Now let's talk about the federal government's response to this storm. FEMA says it's deploying more than 50 personnel to the islands.
We have a FEMA emergency communication team that's in place to assist responders at all levels of government with radio, satellite, and data communication needs if existing phone, internet, and cell services are disrupted.
When homes are hit by severe weather, two types of businesses get really busy: roofers and water extraction companies. Jim Mendoza continues our team coverage.
Businesses that fix the damage caused by strong storms are also preparing for Douglas.
In Mililani, a crew from Torrey's Roofing worked a scheduled job. But before the storm arrives, the company is also getting a lot of calls for quick fixes.
Our crews are kind of stretched thin right now, and then you got the storm coming in, so it just makes it a little bit more difficult to schedule jobs.
MD Restoration has prepared its employees, vehicles, and equipment to roll out on emergency orders if Douglas floods homes.
Just be ready to extract water, help people out that need possibly furniture moved, and wet building material removed from their house.
Summer is already busy for roofers. Hurricane season adds another demand that Torrey's prepares for.
All of our roofers are on call, so if there's an emergency repair, we'll call the foremen and they'll dispatch out.
MD Restoration has 60 water extraction experts. They can handle up to 25 flooded homes at the same time.
It's all hands on deck for Hurricane Douglas. They're all aware that if they're needed at 2 a.m. on Sunday morning, they'll be ready to go out.
Roof repairs Torrey's can't complete before the storm arrives are being secured.
We're securing all the materials. If we can, we take it down. On the roof side, we come in and we make sure the roof is secure, make sure it's watertight before we leave. That's all we can do.
Jim Mendoza, Hawaii News Now.
Good advice there, Jim. And I drove into work this morning around 7 a.m. There's already people at City Mill, at Home Depot. So now is the time. It's really, we've only got a few more hours before we will see the impacts of the storm, of what we might see. Again, it's sort of up in the air of that intensity, but now is the time to prepare.
That's right. And on the Valley Isle, residents are being asked to conserve water. The Department of Water Supply issued the advisory and says strong wind and flooding could disrupt electrical power to pumps and motors in the county's domestic water system. All irrigation systems and other non-essential uses of water should be discontinued until further notice. And to help residents prepare for Hurricane Douglas, Foodland stores statewide will extend opening hours from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. Foodland will also extend its Foodland to You grocery delivery and curbside pickup hours to 11 p.m. Key hurricane preparedness items will be easily accessible, and there will be limits placed on certain things like water and toilet paper to prevent hoarding. The company says store hours on Sunday will be determined as the situation develops.
I did a little shopping last night, and I also filled up some big water bottles, so I think I'm ready, and we have a good stash here at the station as well.
That's right. This is the place to be if the storm hits. Yeah, and Hawaiian Electric is reminding customers to brace for Douglas. They provided some safety information relating to electricity and the possibility of power outages. Hilo tells us to unplug electrical appliances that will not be needed immediately, double check that you have enough flashlights and batteries, turn off your fridge and your freezer. Turn your fridge and the freezer to its coldest settings now so food will last longer. Put ice in an ice chest so you can keep food from going bad, and make sure you have enough non-perishable food on hand.
Well, H&N has some massive coverage plans to bring you the very latest as we track Douglas. We have crews spread out across the state. As soon as this broadcast ends, you're taking off.
Yeah, I'm actually digging out a little early, you guys, to head on over to Kauai.
And we'll check with Guy at the end of this broadcast because it looks like they're actually going to see something.
Yes.
All right, we got to switch gears here just a little bit. Let's get to the very latest. That huge spike in cases for coronavirus.
That's right. The state health department is reporting 73 new COVID-19 cases today, a third straight day of record cases. 68 patients are on Oahu and 5 are on Maui. Mayor Caldwell says Oahu also has its first cluster from a local bar, and he says he will be evaluating whether the city has to close some businesses back down. The health department says there are 625 people across the state currently in isolation or quarantine because of COVID-19, and officials say those individuals all plan to shelter in place amid Hurricane Douglas. We just talked to Lieutenant Governor Josh Green about today's record number of cases. Here's what he had to say.
It's an incredible concern, not just because we also have a hurricane coming, but because the virus is turning into a hurricane. As the number of cases go up, it makes it more likely that they're going to spike up precipitously and get away from the Department of Health's capacity to trace. That's the big concern. So I think we're going to have to get a lot more conservative quite soon. I think we probably will have to take a step back and limit interactions between people.
An important rule change for the thousands of people in quarantine right now. They are allowed to leave their homes or hotels to get hurricane supplies.
If you need to, you can break quarantine to get the needed supplies as necessary, but please, we ask you to maintain physical distance, utilize non-contact retail transactions to the extent possible, curbside pickup and other mechanisms so that you can maintain physical distance and reduce the ability to infect others.
For many of those who could afford it, the pandemic actually gave them a head start on those hurricane kits. Now it's time to start worrying about how to protect property and homes. Jolani Martinez has more.
We've got these table and chairs and umbrella. We'll put that all into a shed so it doesn't blow around.
On top of putting away loose items outside, Tina Sprague says they've also cut down a bunch of trees at her home.
So some of the trees that were hanging over the home, some of the trees that, were a little sickly, and then trees that were touching our roof. We didn't want it touching or anything.
While you make modifications to protect your home, Mike Mishima, Vice President of Dietrich Insurance, says it's important to do an insurance checkup.
The best time to plan or take a look at your insurance policy is before the storm even gets close to the islands, because again, once it's declare like a watch or warning, or even before that, some insurance companies will declare a moratorium so that you will not be able to even purchase insurance or make any changes.
Dietrich Insurance recommends you take photos or videos of not only the inside of your home, but also the outside, in case you want to apply for insurance claims and disaster aid.
It would be a good practice to do that. Again, it's a lot easier to prove your claim.
And as far as important documents that are hard to replace,
But the other thing is Ziploc baggies on some like birth certificates, social security cards, and then just keeping them higher up in hopes that, you don't have that problem in case you do have flooding.
after surviving Hurricanes Iniki and Eva, Sprague offers this advice.
You just pray for the best, and work towards the worst.
Jolani Martinez, Hawaii News Now.
Hawaiian Airlines is canceling all neighbor island flights tomorrow and select flights this evening. The carrier is also waiving change fees for passengers booked through Tuesday. Crews have been busy securing the fleet at DKI by moving more than 60 planes to either the mainland or Kona.
We're taking steps to protect our guests, obviously our ohana, our fleet, and our facilities. And when it comes to our fleet in particular, what we're doing is we're starting to reposition the airplanes ahead of the approaching storm. With our 717s, we're moving them to Kona, and with our A321s and A330s, we're moving them to the mainland. Right now, we see moving our 717s down to Kona on the Big Island. As a result, we need to start doing that before the storm approaches the Big Island. It's going to be passing to the north of Hawaii. But as it does, we need to be ahead of that and get the airplanes down to Kona. So we're starting to reposition those 717s now.
HNN has reporters traveling to locations across the state to bring you team coverage as we track Douglas. Here's Chelsea Davis with more on her coverage plans.
Hey everyone, we just landed on Maui. We're here covering Hurricane Douglas and its impacts here to the Valley Isle. We have a very busy day covering preparations and what county officials are doing to keep you safe. Our first stop is interviewing Maui County Mayor Mike Victorino. He issued an emergency proclamation yesterday ahead of the storm. He's also shut down all county facilities, including parks, beach parks, swimming pools, and county golf courses as well. Also beginning tonight, emergency shelters are open for those in need. But with that being said, officials are encouraging everyone to shelter at home if possible. Shelters should be the last resort. It may be safe to ride out the storm at your home. With that being said, make sure your home is secured. Make sure everything outside of your home is tied down. Your trees are trimmed. In case of the event, we have strong winds or heavy flooding. Also, by now you should have a hurricane plan. Make sure you have your hurricane kit ready as well. What we've been talking about all week long, 14 days worth of food, supply, water, and medication as well. Also, don't forget to check on your kupuna neighbors, friends, and family members. This is the last day to stay safe, everyone.
That was Chelsea Davis. Now look at this, an H&N Digital Center first. We got Guy Hockey in the house.
How's it, Jonathan?
Good. Let's get the very latest on the track of the storm. What can you tell us?
Okay, the storm is still on its way towards Hawaii. It's moving at a very good clip at about 18 miles an hour. And at the 11 a.m. update, it is a Category 1 storm. It's got winds at 90 miles an hour. Those are sustained winds. And it's got gusts upwards of 115 miles an hour. And because it's still on a track to come into the state, they have posted a number of watches, warnings, and advisories. The most urgent, of course, is the hurricane warning. And believe it or not, it's on for Oahu. And what hurricane warning means that Oahu is expecting to see hurricane conditions. And that means very powerful winds, lots of rainfall, upwards of 8 inches, and that could cause flooding as well as large surf. Now there's a timeline on it. You can see it's going to approach the Big Island, slowly move to the north of the Big Island. So notice the Big Island outside of that cone of uncertainty. So they will skate, although they could still see some severe weather conditions. Now across the state, we're worried about all of these things. Tropical storm to hurricane force winds that could bring down trees, cause power outages, as well as property damage, big surf, as well as all that rain I just talked about. And some spots actually could get upwards of 15 inches of rain, most likely for Oahu and for Kauai. So there's the time frame for the Big Island, Saturday night through Sunday, up to 5 inches of rain. But they should actually skirt, although they could get some lingering thunderstorms all the way into Sunday evening. Now the time frame for Maui County looks like this. They're going to be honing in on Maui County with 5 to 10 inches of rain. We're talking Sunday morning, as it just passes to the north of them. They could still get some lingering storm activity all the way until Sunday morning. Now for Oahu, the time frame for the worst of it is likely by noontime, and that storm's going to get closer. That's what we're thinking. It's going to get closer to Oahu than Maui County or the Big Island. So we're expecting more severe weather, more rain, stronger winds, and that big surf as well. And it should be a rough ride all the way through Sunday night into Monday morning. And for Kauai, well, they could get a direct hit. This is a worst case scenario. And if it does pan out, they could get upwards of 18 inches of rain and maybe winds in excess of 60 miles an hour. So we're looking at a severe weather situation, Jonathan.
Certainly looks like we will see some impact even if it keeps going north, right?
Yeah, even if it keeps going north. So hopefully it moves away. Keep your fingers crossed. And again, plan and prepare for the worst.
You guys, that's